Sorry, but sometimes it's just,
You just can't.
I can.
I will call this meeting of the Finance and Claims Committee on June 23rd, 2015. Present is Mr. Mumper, Mr. Thornberry, Mr. Sanker, and Mr. Stitt. So called the meeting tonight to kind of go over to see where we're at appropriation-wise and to make some changes to some keys that need to be adjusted in certain areas, and also some bills that we don't have the money in the particular keys to actually pay. And also we have a revenue fund sheet to discuss as well. So Jim, which one would you want to look at first?
If you want to touch on the revenue sheet, we could just kind of touch on where we are so far this year. This is actually projected versus actual. So when you see information come from like the treasurer's office, you know, his data typically is where we stand year to date compared to the previous year. What we put out is where we are versus our projections for each one of the major keys. So that's why there'll tend to be some difference between the two, because we project either increases or decreases in a variety of keys across the fund, and then, you know, total them into our major areas here. So down at the very bottom, that last row that goes across, it's really not labeled, that is the total amount, either up or down, over or under projected amount for that month. And all the way to the right-hand side, year to date, the number that's at the very bottom is the amount over or under year to date. So you can see some funds or some areas of the general fund are up a little, some are down a little. There's a fluctuation up and down throughout the year, but the totals in that far right-hand column for being up or down are listed there. So far this year, above projected, we are $256,474.49. In our revenue this year, we should have received at least 5, probably 6 payments of our SAFER grant, which should be about $44,000 a month. Out of the 6 we should have received, so far we've only received 2. I talked to the fire chief about that, and we mentioned it to Mr. Gears last month, and we looked into it, and apparently they were doing an audit of our grant, and they were not issuing payments for the 2 months that they were doing the audit. So there is expected to be an $84,000 payment, I think, coming, and not an $88,000. It had to do with the fact that when we calculated, when the fire department asked for the figures of how much each fireman cost, they were calculating their cost basis on the health insurance being based on a family plan, which is typically what most of the city employees have in their cost, and we are reimbursed for that. We're reimbursed for all expenses for those 6 firemen except for the overtime. And in doing that, we were putting our projected expenses down. Well, a couple of them just have single plans, or maybe their spouses are using their insurance and they're not on the city's insurance. So instead of being $88,000 every 2 months, it ends up being about $84,000 every 2 months. So that's what they were auditing and calculating, and so that's where the kind of delay has been. We expect to get that money this month, and then probably another double payment next month, and then we'll be caught up. That grant runs through October of this year. They are trying to extend it through January, which would be nice. We always tend to run about 2 months behind, so the revenue from it will at least run through December, but hopefully will run February or March. But the fire chief is working on that.
Is that reflected in the miscellaneous revenue then?
Correct. And so you'll see where the miscellaneous revenue is down.
Right.
You can almost see it's about, for several of these, it's about $44,000 a month or $45,000 a month. Most of that's the 44 of it is the SAFER grant money that didn't come in that month. So that was just to kind of give you an idea of where we are. I do have the detailed cash flow analysis if you guys are interested at any point. The big spreadsheet that has all the charts and graphs and looks at our general fund revenue compared to projected and each key broken down. So, have any questions on that? So we're doing a little better than we thought we were going to do. Not a huge amount, but a little better.
Yeah.
And we were projecting that we were going to do better this year, so that's good. The purchase order request with insufficient appropriations list from today. These are all the outstanding POs that have come in that do not have appropriations to cover it. Some of these I went ahead and put on this suggested appropriations change sheet. And if you look at the one that is in landscape form listed next to each change, I do have listed the what it's used for and how it reflects on this list.
Okay.
If you'd like to kind of run down these, we can. Starting with real estate tax, $23,000. This is money that we pay on various properties. Some of our things that we get taxed for as a city are tax exempt, other things are not. We always take the tax bills to the law department. They direct us which ones to pay, and some other ones they have been asking for an appeal on. And I think that we've seen some of the ones that we were asking for an appeal on come back to us and say, no, you owe some money on it. So that's our tax bill for this year.
That reflects 2014.
That's correct. And where it says delinquent assessments, those are probably some from 12 and 13 that we were appealing to the county and saying, look, we're a municipality, we shouldn't have to pay on certain things, and they've come back and said we do. We will talk to the law department again on all of those before we send any of them. Typically they go through and, like I said, they check them, telling us what to pay and what not. A lot of these bills, we're paying certain things, but then there's other easements and other fees that are on there that we have tended to appeal back to the county. So it's like we're paying partial on a lot of them. Clerk of Council, you can see their Inquirer third and fourth quarter ads. I put on this just $2,000 for the third quarter, and then we'll close out first and second, and hopefully there'll be enough left that there'll be enough appropriations to carry the fourth.
Right.
Under Safety Service Director, that first one is not actually Safety Service Director key. That's the one that's listed as Workers' Comp, 01-2120. And that is our comp management PwC annual fee. We had paid part of that fee, $603.59, earlier this year, which did make that key go negative. We add $1,800 to that, and the total amount's $2,403.59. As you know, we've gotten big chunks of money to the tune of about $80,000 back the past couple of years, and that's from being in the Ohio Municipal Joint Self-Insurance Pool, and as well as being involved in these comp management programs. So while they cost some money, they actually earn back a significant amount of savings to the city in the long run. The next one is 01-0850 7300. That is the Superintendent of Public Works key. And you can see under the Department of Transportation Engineering, there's maintenance and and energy costs, $850.05. They have $120 left in the key. If you look on the sheet for appropriation change, it says $1,210.05, and that's because if you look on page 2, or the other side of the page that you're on, the very top under Public Works, you'll see that same key, 01-0850 7300. There's another for padlocks for the Lock and Security Center, $178.80, and $300 for Pestall. Those two items get added into the $850.05 and have the $120 balance subtracted to it, which gives you $1,210.05, and it covers all three of those items. Law department, labor poster printing and pro graphics for printing. Looks like about just under $1,100. They have $204 left. So I put on here under the law department $885.09, which will cover the printing and deplete the balance of that fund or of those appropriations. Also under law department, 01-2600. The 2600 key is our insurance key. You'll see that in about the middle of the page, and that is our fee for our Ohio Municipal Joint Self-Insurance Pool. Like I said, that those insurance programs tend to bring us back savings. Public lands and buildings, 01-091-17300. That's for roofing supplies, repairing of the roof for the firehouse.
It's for the supplies, and they're going to provide the labor.
Correct. So $5,000. I just put the $5,000 on there. That'll leave Mr. Gears and his materials and supplies about $400 left for the rest of the year. I expect that as issues like this come in, we're going to have to just keep kind of fine tuning and increase it when major things come. If something pops up and is under $2,500 or so, I can do a then and now. So, emergencies can be addressed, and then appropriations can be made later up to that threshold. So, building department, Jerry Stoker, third and fourth quarter. I actually pulled his, and I have a copy here. The existing PO for second quarter has not yet been used. He still has $12,300 that have not been paid. I don't see a reason to approve a third or fourth quarter purchase order until the current POs get close to being run down. And what we saw is when he was working full time, we had pretty regularly the same amount for each PO that comes in, and now he's working more part time, and we've seen the the payment requests go from $4,000 or $4,500 down to $1,200. So by him being part time, he's not using up his POs. He may not even at this rate use up, or may just come close to being just a little over using up those existing POs. I doubt he'll use a full 3/4 of this unless something changes. So I would not put either one of those on for now.
Sounds good.
Petty cash renewal for them, I did put that on. We already talked about the public works changes. Street department, there's, if you look on towards the bottom where all the separate funds are listed, $3,362. That covers a new hydraulic cylinder, hip faces and spaces from Clean Incorporated. Not quite sure what those are, but that's a street thing. And tires for the street department, $670. Water department, those are all refunds. So we're going to pay those back to the tune of $401.34. Health department is right about in the middle of the page with those two lines together. That's the treasurer of the state of Ohio. Whenever we see those fees that have to be paid from the health department, that's actually a good thing, because that's the portion of the money we collect. So if we're paying them $645, we're probably making $1,000. Mm-hmm. So it's really not that bad to see that. That's a number we'd like to see go up. Police department, for one of the officers to get tuition reimbursement, $1,411.43. I placed that in there. And then the drug law enforcement, if you look on, well, before we get to that, let's address one other thing. Very center of the page, two lines together, 01-2550-8800, general funds, refunds, not otherwise specified. You'll see there's $8.25. Community Development Block Grant, Joy Pearson, who is the Community Development Administrator, sent me an email last week. Says we issued the payment of the total budget amount for a project for $14,100 instead of the actual expense of $14,091.75. Payment was deposited at the Norwood bank account. The payment number's here. Could we please process a reimbursement payment for their overpayment to us of $8.25? So I put that on our general fund refunds NOS key, and then we can issue them a check back for the $8.25 overpayment on the $14,100 that they gave us. I ran a formula on our spreadsheets. And actually, I want to take one of these off. The 9 cents Linear Park Flower Fund can come off of there. It's just not relevant. It's not material at that size. So what we did for the rest of these, except for the water fund refunds and the street fund, is we looked at how much balance was in each fund at the beginning of the year, plus the existing revenue up to date, minus existing purchase orders open at the beginning of the year, compared that to our current appropriations. So basically, if a fund made more money year to date than we thought that they would, and actually have exceeded their full year appropriations, not a projection, we increased the amount of the appropriations by the amount of revenue they've received so far this year. So this is actually money that's come in. This is not a projection.
Right.
And there's a number of them. One of the big ones that made a difference is the EMS fund. Remember, we talked earlier this year about how there were a lot of open POs in the EMS fund to the tune of about $34,000 at the beginning of the year. So their appropriations were lower. The fire chief went through these about 2 months ago and closed out and paid everything off that was owed from the previous year. Closed out all the other POs to the tune of about $22,000, is what it come up to here, $22,496.19. So that is money that once those POs are closed out, that increases the amount of carryover they have from last year, which then increases their appropriations this year, which means they can buy Narcan, which costs a lot of money now.
Oh, thank God.
It went from about $18 a vial to about $40 a vial, I think. And it's going to go to $60 soon.
This has nothing to do with that, but I heard something on the radio maybe 2 months ago about a new drug that's out that you give it to people that are heroin addicts, and heroin has no effect on them anymore.
Yeah.
And then if they're treated by paramedics and not jailed, Medicaid will cover the cost of that drug.
Well, Narcan is the
No, but it's not the same. as
There's
Narcan.
there's other drugs that are what are called agonist antagonist, which
Yeah,
block,
but this is
but they have to take
earlier use than Narcan.
Right.
It's not. They don't wait until they're OD.
So
Yeah.
you think about drugs like Antabuse that alcoholics used to be prescribed, and you'd take the drug, and then if you drank alcohol, you'd vomit forcefully, and it would be very miserable.
Yeah.
What we found is that alcoholics just stopped taking the drug. So sort of the same way. It's a nice idea, put it that way.
Yes.
I'd love something like that to work, but. So the rest of all of this is, including the core fund, which you may have received an email on. Each one of these represents actual revenue to these funds. One other email that I did receive, I'm not sure if any of you are on the list of emails that comes in from the block grant, was a notice that there's $250,000 within the county available for teardowns of vacant or condemned property. So, especially with buying that property on, or obtaining, I think it cost us $70 to get the property on Quatman. I know the safety service director is on that list, and then I forwarded something to the law department also, because I don't think they're on that list. But just this week, I think it came yesterday, we received notice that the county has money available for teardowns. So
Good.
that's something you may want to talk to the safety service director about. there may be other properties besides the one on Quatman that are available, so. And that's what I have. Do any of you have any objections to the totals that are on the current suggested changes here to the appropriations, or anything you would like to add?
Did you say you're going to, on Fund 22, the Linder Park Flower Fund, take that all?
It's 9 cents. Yeah,
Just take
it's
that off,
yeah.
too.
Just leave that off. We'll wait till it comes up to a more material amount. I'll run a similar comparison after we close out June for all funds, and then even do some revenue projections on funds, typically like we do, and maybe have a similar list that's a little longer, because there's probably some that the balances need to go down on also, and we should look at those next month.
When we get those checks from workers' comp for having safety meetings and those sorts of things, didn't we just receive one like $880,000 maybe 2 or 3 months ago?
Yes.
Where does that money go?
That actually is shown as a negative expenditure, so it ends up, because it's a refund for money we spent, on the cash flow analysis spreadsheet that we follow, most of the time it'll show up, because we have like the Bureau of Workers' Comp list here going across, and the month that it comes in, instead of being revenue, it comes in as a negative expense to that key. And so you'll actually see a negative number in the expense key because it's a refund. That's the way we've done it in previous years, and unless the state auditor changes its mind, we really don't have a revenue key for it. It just comes up as a negative.
You ever have any luck finding the stormwater assessment
Yeah.
fees?
No.
Did?
Huh?
We didn't?
Well, from which
From the
one?
county. 68,000 or something like
What,
that. It was included with some other money. I got the details on it.
Yeah, that was included with the county settlement sheet, and so it was just designated to go to the wrong fund. So that's something that we come back during the audit and adjust.
move it over then?
So sometimes you'll see individual checks come through, and they don't just show up on the county settlement sheet, and then you get the sheet later and it shows up on there. So for example, we may see on a monthly basis a little bit of property tax that trickles in, and some of it may go to the general fund and some of it may go to the Linden Point school fund. And they don't always tell us. They're just like, here's your property tax, and then you get the settlement sheet, and we're like, oh yeah, we should have put 15,000 over here, and you have to adjust those. That was a 68,000 or something like that.
Close
Yeah.
to that, yeah. Maybe 67 something.
So sometimes you just get checks like that, and you're like, well, it's not always checks. A lot of times you'll just get things, and they'll be, it's like the core funds. You'll just get a notice from the bank that money came in, and there won't be a designation to where it's supposed to go. And it may take us a month or two to figure that out with the treasurer's office. So he'll reconcile when he gets his bank statements in, and has to reconcile everything, and he goes, oh, yeah, designates where they go.
Well, you can recommend we make these changes minus the 9 cents.
For our next meeting, we're going to adjust the certificate for all funds, because it'll be after the closeout of June. And then we'll try to do some projections of where we stand on first half revenue, first half expenditures for all keys, including payroll. So that might have a full page of changes.
And I don't think we did, but as far as we didn't fund the second building inspector's position, I don't believe, although they posted they had to post that, but I know we didn't put anything in there for that second.
I actually
I mean, the
looked
position's there, but we didn't fund it.
I looked at that earlier today. Because it was the beginning of the year that was funded for a while, because it was still getting paid up until February, I think. There was somebody on administrative leave, but they were still getting paid. So the total salaries I've got listed for them is $251,000 for the year. And thus far this year, they've spent $117,000. So it leaves them with $133 left, and that covers the rest of this year. So that's half of the year that's pretty much gone. So that there's no room in there to hire somebody else. We're going to really have to add in once somebody comes into that position. Although I've heard if somebody comes in there, somebody else might be leaving, and then to go. What I'm hearing is there might be a significant amount of shuffling of union personnel within the city in between departments. So you may see a lag of like a month or so longer.
All right. Anybody else have a question? I was going to say we could report out that we recommend that this Exhibit A be added to the agenda and approved this evening.
Sounds good.
Works for me.
And
Great, I will go print them out.
Anything else we need to talk about?
Nothing here.
I just said we reviewed with the auditor various department keys which needed to be adjusted. Following page, Exhibit A, reflects the suggested changes. The committee recommends passing the 62315 Exhibit A. Respectfully committed.
Committed. Yeah.
So with that, I would say this meeting has adjourned. And thank you all for coming.
Thank you.